The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Tsuburaya Productions. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of How We Would Fix. Marcus and Jacob here to discuss mostly just all of Showa Riders, because they all kind of blend together in terms of the problems that we have.
Yeah, the only ones that really end up standing out is like the beginning of Ichigo and V3 as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everything else is just like, no.
Where would you like to begin?
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay, and when we come to the end, we will stop.
Let's talk about Ichigo.
Oh, okay. Is there anything in particular that jumps out to you when you say Ichigo? Because whenever I think of Ichigo, I just mainly think about the first 13 episodes or so as being the strongest.
It's sort of like the first 13 episodes of Jekka, which is weird enough. Before he got injured.
The actor, we mean.
Yeah. It's everything with Nigo afterwards, where it's just like...
I think a lot of it comes from a shift in tone.
Yes.
A shift in... the consistency of the tone in the first 3 episodes, how it is so much darker.
Yeah.
How there is definitely a body count, and there are lots of deaths.
People get murked left and right.
They do, and I also think they find clever ways to shoot around it. I think the way they use effects that they had at the time for the budget they had, I think was well done.
Yeah.
And I don't think that carries over throughout the remainder of the series.
Yeah, after his injury, it's just like when Nigo comes in, and I pretty much use this point specifically, the show sort of gets real fast and doesn't stop. And I don't like that. Not a fan, no.
Me neither. Because I think about, in the first episode, the first time you see somebody get sprayed, I think they get sprayed with acid and they melt, and they do it by shooting foam being pushed through a hole in reverse.
Now, I sort of want to split this video into two. If only because we have not seen Super 1 yet.
We have not.
So I think Sky Rider and Super 1 will end up having their own video because we'll inevitably have problems with Super 1.
We will see.
And we do have problems with Sky Rider, as you saw in our review.
Yeah. And I think that would lead into our next problem, which I think could be summed up across all the ones that I've seen, which is put more focus on your characters.
Yeah, with the 70s up until a certain point, it was really, as you said, about the melodrama and nothing else. So you just sat there if you don't care about the character themselves, there's nothing attaching you to that show. And it's weird because V3 sort of has that where it's a lot about the melodrama, but as we said, Hiroshi Miyuchi just has so much going for him as a character, as an actor. He's engaging. He had a lot of charisma, a lot of uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And that's one of those things that, will just go forward with everything that we've seen from him since. But you end up having somebody like X.
X, I think that the biggest takeaway from X was that he had a father who chose violence as his love language.
He had a fiance who died, and then he had his fiance's sister who chose violence and then died. And
the fact that they put the opening theme song puts all this emphasis on the underwater base, and he's the water themed Kamen Rider, and that lasts for I think 1 episode and a half. Before the underwater base explodes
for no reason,
and then we are back on land. So I would also say, if you're going to promise something as part of a theme, stick to it.
Yeah. What was that? That was just so odd.
It was truly one of the most bizarre twists I've seen in a toku.
Where it's just
for sure.
We're underwater. We're doing the things under the water. We're a submarine. Our bike can move underwater. We're not underwater.
It doesn't need to for the rest of the series.
Yeah. It was really, really weird. And I just don't get it.
And I think, because as of recording this video, we will be watching Shin Kamen Rider.
Yes.
Coming up soon.
Yes, this week.
So I am very curious to see how some of the things we might talk about in this video carry over to that.
Yeah.
So I think it is timely for that reason.
Yeah, it's weird because, as you said, just like going, we skipped V3 not just because we really liked that show, because the show did what it wanted to do well. But when you have Nigo's pretty much entire portion until he comes back, until Ichigo comes back later on in the show, it's just like the kids got the focus again, and not a fan of that.
You don't like the Rider Scouts?
No.
Okay.
They last a little bit too long, too. They last for like the next couple of shows.
I think that would lead into something else, and that's make sure your side characters are good.
Those side characters, especially Ichigo, Jesus Christ, you never even really got a chance to know them except for the kid. And in all honesty, he was probably one of the best parts of that show. While Ichigo wasn't there, but every woman, who was that? Who is she?
Also a good point.
Who is she, though? Who would play her? Everybody. Because it's a different person every single goddamn week.
But you'd never know.
Yeah.
It's a woman in distress. That's all they needed.
Like one girl was suddenly just there. It was the girl who liked to do the fencing, which she rarely ever did. And then she was just gone.
I would say less so do them good, but more cultivate a supporting cast.
Yeah.
Cultivate a supporting cast that we can consistently follow.
Have something that they do that we actually care about.
Because a lot of times with show riders, the writer himself doesn't have a lot of personality.
No.
He's very much a blank heroic slate of like, I am a good person and I will do good things because I am a hero and that's what I do.
Unless your name is V3 and thus Revenge. So.
Revengeance.
That was pretty much his entire thing. He was like, I am angry always. And I said, you know what? Okay. I approve. I appreciate that. But then you got X. And X just comes in and you're just like, why?
I feel like you could say that about all of them. They come in and it's just like, I'm going to fight this monster because I have to.
Yeah.
I would say...
You don't even do it in a flash shoot like V3 did, showing up out of the front of a locomotive. Which is still my favorite scene from anything ever. Because he like got tossed away, and the next thing you know, he kicks over the front of the steam engine, and it's just him. He's like... and I'm just like, this man is a god.
He does exist.
He's also a magician. And I appreciate that. We haven't talked about Stronger Amazon, really, but...
There are things to say, I think.
Yeah. Amazon at least had the camp factor. Looking back, it really had the camp factor.
It has the camp factor, and I think it's comparable to say that the storytelling of Toku in the 70s and the early, and most throughout the Showa period is comparable to the American comic books in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
It's less so that they didn't want to tell other stories, but this is just how they thought those stories were told.
Yeah.
Because you go back and you watch, whether it's reading a Batman comic from that time or watching the Adam West show, that's just how they thought those stories were told. It's not that they were deliberately trying to be campy.
Very kitschy in and of themselves.
Yes.
It's like, hey, people still watch them, but things end up getting cut down. As you saw with 3 shows in a row with X, Stronger, X Amazon and Stronger, all getting cut down to like 30-something episodes each. I think people just weren't watching them.
I think that's... I want to go back and touch on what I said again. It's because the way that Adam West Batman, as Adam West would say, like they took their slice of the cultural pie and added it to them. Like it is very much immersed in the 60s, but it's of its time. Yeah. You go back and watch it. Yeah, it's incredibly cheesy.
Oh,
but
God, it is. I love it though.
But that's just how they were told.
Tony G. Williker's Batman.
Holy Moses. And I would love to see, especially if they went back and did a period piece set in this time. We definitely saw some of this with Black Sun. Yeah. Where I would love to see them, like, what is the cultural zeitgeist and how does that look?
How does that translate going forward?
I want to see it in ways other than fashion. Because the way everyone's dressed, for sure, you can tell it's the 70s or the 80s or whatnot.
Yeah, how they're dressed, what their hair is.
The way it's shot, that sort of thing.
It's just one of those things, and the thing I will constantly bring up every single time I see it, because it pops up in these shows whenever somebody's at the airport, Pan Am existing. So people just smoking on planes.
Yeah, smoking in planes, smoking in public places, heroes smoking, that sort of thing.
It's so interesting. I love watching these shows, but even at the same time, it's like there are things in them that we want to fix like so much. I more than anything, and we've talked about it a little bit ad nauseum at this point, but man, the problem with Rider, if you do not like that main character, you are stuck with that main character.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Man, I didn't really like X's Rider that much. He seemed a little bit like a whiny bitch the entire time. Nigo had no real character. He doesn't even have an origin.
No, he just shows up.
Yeah.
It's like, they made another cyborg. Here he is.
He's taking pictures. Zashin. But like, they don't do anything to show where he came from. He legitimately just shows up. So we don't even get a backstory for this guy. What? Who is he? Where did he come from? Who, what, when, where, how, and why?
Yeah, I think that about sums that bit up. Is there anything else that like really egregiously sticks out to you?
The villains have like nothing. They're just generic bad men.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing, is really samey villains.
Yeah.
A lot of these villain organizations, especially in the Showa era, could be... I mean, yeah, you could say this about Heisei, Showa, Neo Heisei, and Reiwa as well, but in the Showa era, I think it's so much more noticeable because of... I think it has to do with the way they're costumed. It has to do with the actors they cast. It has to do with their lair, the way the villains are shot and lit.
I almost want to say
it's
like,
all the same.
It's almost they had a version of the Hays Code over there. But at the same time, you have something like Hokkaido and Kakaider happen, where that part of the show was the most interesting because things start to pile on top of each other, even though he did just get beaten by Bone Squirrel.
I'm glad we corrected it. It wasn't Skeleton Squirrel, but it's not that much of a step up.
Who cares? He was just a random monster that beat Hokkaido, and you're just sitting here like, how, why?
But then you compare that to something like Top Gunner.
Yeah.
And just like the development that a villain gets
over the 13
as opposed to every other, Rider villain organization that we have, where it's Shocker but with a different name. Or
literally, because it's the same guy voicing it's legitimately the same head bad guy for every single one.
Yeah. You have a character saying, "Now go forth and do bad things, my minions." You have that voice over the PA system telling everyone to go do bad things. And then they're like, "Why, of course, General, we will do all of the bad things."
But it's just the same
you
plot. There,
Skeleton Blellington, go out there and go forth and bring mischief and death. And then it's like, "Okay, I'll do that." And then we're off to the races. That's every episode.
Weirdly enough, the thing that each Rider is missing, although Stronger had this a little bit with Cyclops at the beginning, they're missing that rival.
I'm glad you brought that up, because what is... I don't remember if this counts as Showa or Heisei, but with Shadow Moon and Black.
Straddles the line.
Straddles the line. But we talk about that rivalry.
He died in the show.
During the show. But we talk about that rivalry specifically, and especially how it was carried over into Black Sun.
Yeah.
And how that, the way that story plays out, the way it ended, the way his father frees him at the beginning of the show, where we know what the stakes are, and they use purely visual storytelling to get it across. That's something else. It's like purely visual storytelling is something you don't see.
Yeah.
It's always, we have to have a scene with the villains dictating that they're bad, and then they send forth a monster, and then the monster is like in the shadows, I'm gonna do bad things, and then eventually our rider shows up and foils their plans. And that's pretty much it. There aren't a lot of moments or scenes or anything where we just like let the atmosphere take hold. And that's something that I think is missing.
It happened a little bit of the first 13 episodes. But
of Rider 1, yeah.
Yeah, of Ichigo. But after that, it's just like they never really did it again. Even with V3. And it's weird because nobody ever really talks about the first portion of Black. Where it was just really Showa-esque. Until Shadow Moon comes in. And that's what everybody talks about. And everybody talks about it for a reason. That's the most memorable part of that show. But up until that point, it's just like sort of standard. But it just ends exceedingly well. Bring that rival in. I think that's one thing that those shows needed more than anything. Bring that emotional impact to just really drive home. Rival
on the villain side or like a rival hero.
Yeah.
Frenemies, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or like what Baron was before he decided to go crazy. Or Michi before he decided to go.
Michi.
Well, he was already crazy.
Before he went full Michi.
Yeah, before he went full Michi.
Oh, what a punk. Anyway, anything else that comes to mind?
They needed, really, a cliffhanger. There was like rarely ever something that really made me want to come back and watch.
There was never a same Rider time, same Rider channel.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it was every single time. It's like they did.
How will Kamen Rider get out of this? He's in a bad situation. What's going to happen next? Oh my goodness. Tune in next week, folks.
I think it had like maybe one or two in Ichigo, and that's only because the show was just so long that they could do that. But outside of that, it's just like we never really had that moment where just like
there aren't a lot of continuing stories.
Yeah.
Everything is introduced in the beginning of the episode, and the status quo is maintained by the end because the villain is defeated.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much every episode.
I'm saying this is really enough because I'm seeing this a little bit. I saw this in Go Ranger, and I'm seeing this a little bit in Denzi Man, but the characters are really carrying that show for me. It's just one of those things where things that could be cliffhangers, but they resolve it in the same episode. It's like they don't know how to build up tension. Where's that tension build? Huh, Toei?
A lot of problems seem to get resolved in a way that I feel could have been resolved at any time.
Yeah.
Like whenever Kikaider has to listen to Hot Cross Buns, it's like I feel like you could have just fixed this so much sooner, but
I could not wait until we watch 01 and they don't have that.
Maybe just make a recording of yourself playing that and just kind of keep it on repeat. Give it to each If that's going to be his one weakness.
Just give it to each
Give him a Walkman, little speaker,
And just have him, you're here.
You just make Schwarzenegger noises and then you fall over dead.
And I'd be like, brava, ding dong. But yeah, I really have much else.
Neither do I, so I guess that about wraps it up.
Yeah. Let us know what you think about how would you fix the Showa era shows in the comments below. Like we said, we're going to talk more about Super 1 and Sky Rider once we finish Super 1 in a couple of months. So, yeah, just wait for that because, man, do we have a lot to talk about with Sky Rider. Because as you saw, we did not have a damn thing to talk about in that review. But yeah, don't forget to join us all the things. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.